Welcome to the Kids with Big Emotions podcast, formerly known as Calm Nights, Strong Days. I am your host, Andi Clark, and this is our fifth mistake, the final mistake that I've definitely made. I still do at times, and I have to check myself. And parents that I work with have made. I see this all over. And now this mistake is really putting everything together that we have talked about. So if you have not listened to the 5 mistakes, I would like you to go back 5 episodes ago. We had a Halloween one in there to start with, but it started at episode, let me see. Oh, shoot. Episode 79 is where we started this 5-part series. And we first talked about punishment and how we do need to change the way that we view discipline with our kids, not using the old styles of discipline that does not work for neurodiverse kids. Working on getting yourself out of burnout, in order to thrive, and in order to make sure that we are the best role model for our kids, that we are modeling what we would like our kids to be modeling, and just allowing everybody in our house to just be as successful as possible. And then we dove into not being in our power and having the knowledge of our kids. You know your kids better than anybody else. And once you learn more about executive functioning, more about their stress system, you are going to be able to give information, resources, tools to anyone who's helping your kid, to their teachers, to their coaches, their sports coaches, their academic coaches, if they're on any teams, math teams, science Olympiads, if they're on sports teams, in music, arts, if they're working with an occupational therapist or a mental therapist or a speech and language pathologist, they're working with any type of therapist, or they're with their doctor, you are going to come in with such a solid base of knowledge and understanding of your child that you will know how to guide and direct them, giving them frameworks that they can then take all of the knowledge and skills that they use in their profession to be able to add in those frameworks with their way of working and doing things in order to really help excel them with your child. So they're not going blindly with your child, to really be helping them. And then that dove in deep into executive functioning and understanding more of executive functioning and how helping our kids with their executive functioning struggles can just, oh gosh, open up a whole world for them. And then the fourth one is where we dove into external stressors, into a lot of their sensitivities. So the hearing a lot, overstimulation of things, environmental toxins was one I really dove deep into that one. It's like a hidden stressor that you may not be aware of. And if you can take that out of their environment, it takes so much stress off of their bodies that they have more bandwidth to handle other stressors in their life and in their day. And that leads us to this last one, to the fifth mistake. And that's where we have all of this arsenal of information that I just gave you. You might be like, okay, so I'm going to dive into this executive functioning and I'm going to learn these stress tools and I'm going to really help, with my child. And sometimes we're doing so much, quote unquote, fixing of our child that we lose sight that we should be supporting our child. And we unintentionally, we're losing sight of what makes them truly, truly amazing. Their quirks, their creativity, their unique perspective on things, the way that they think so outside of the box, all of the things that make them them, that are going to change the world. And we lose that sight sometimes. So it's like, imagine you're an artist and you have this block of clay and you constantly molding it and match it to make it so rigid and trying to make this predetermined shape, this shape that you decided in your mind it was going to look like perfectly. And you're focusing so much on this perfection that you end up missing where a line that you made, maybe by mistake, actually adds to that piece, to that art. There's like another curve that just emerged naturally that brings this beauty to that artwork. And that's the thing, when we try to shape our neurodiverse kids to like fit society standards, when we're trying to sculpt away that natural beauty that makes them neurodiverse, kind of like fixing them, then like I'm just getting sad thinking of that, because it takes away that beauty. What if we allowed them to form and emerge instead of trying to force them in a mold, that neurotypical mold? Our kids are not neurotypical. And oh my gosh, I love my kids for it, both of them. Oh, the things they do that are so outside the box at times, the way that they think, I just love it. And so when we're working on all of these mistakes that we did speak of before, if we look at it from the lens, not of fixing behaviors, because when we are trying to fix behaviors, then the child feels like there's something wrong with them. They're getting that message. And I'm going to guess that none of us wants to give that message to our kid that there's something wrong with them. I know, like some of our kids are, my one child is so hard on himself. His perfectionism, the goals, the bar that he sets for himself are like unachievable at times. He's hard enough on himself that I don't want him to at all feel that I'm hard on him, which there's times I've had to figure out how to reword things and change things and change the way that I'm approaching things, so he's not feeling like I'm trying to fix him, that he knows that it's ways of actually helping him with his emotional and intellectual growth instead of hindering his emotional and intellectual growth. And that's where we sit there and we're like, but aren't we supposed to guide our children and help them improve? Yes, 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 of course. The key is guiding them in a way that honors who they truly are at their core, rather than trying to mold them into something they're not, trying to get them to fit the way the school system is. I'm a big one on that. I don't believe in any systems, which is fascinating. My husband's a police officer. And like I should actually be saying this live, but oh well, this is me. There's times he comes home where I'm just like, why is that being done that way? Thinking outside the box on this. One of my favorite books, my favorite books is Switch by Dan, and I'm going to write this down so that I don't forget. Dan and Chip Heath. It's called Switch. Now, what it's about, I love all their books. What this one's about, I'm going to put in show notes. Okay, so I've got that written down, so I'll put it in the show notes. Switch is about actually what a lot of people do when there's a problem is they go in and they think, where's the problem? How can I fix it? And they start all over from scratch. And this is what a lot of like schools do, or government run services do. So police services do this, all government services. So think of anything that is really a government service. They do this. Well, I'm saying all, not all are run by all the same people, and some things may be different. I'm totally going based on my opinions and my thoughts and my beliefs, and this may not be yours. But in Switch, it talks about, instead, why don't we focus on what works? Why don't we focus on what is working? So the first story, and it's all stories, and I love all the stories in this book. The first story that they talk about is how this man who's a nutritionist is flown with his wife and his son, I believe it's his son, one child. They're flown to a third world country, very, very, very poor area, really small village, because they have a malnourishment issue with the kids. And so he went there thinking, okay, I'm going to fix this problem. I'm going to solve it and fix it. But when he went there, he's like, they don't have money. They don't have the money or the resources to learn about other nutrition, to, start learning about all kinds of fruits and vegetables and healthy eating, because they don't even have the money to be able to buy all those things. And they don't have the resources to even get it if they had the money. So he started looking around the village and noticed that there were some kids that looked really healthy. So he went around and weighed all the kids. And there were a certain number of kids that were underweight, a large percentage, which is what he was going to fix. And there was a small percentage that were of weight. So what he did was he started talking to the parents, said, what do you do? What do you feed them? And so what he found out, and I may be wrong on some of this, it's been a while since I read the book, I should read it again, is he found out that when these kids are younger, they are only eating rice because it's thought that if they ate the little bit of protein that they do have to go with the rice, that they can't digest it until like the age of 9 or something like that. So there was this belief that he had to go against. What he did find is in these kids that were of nourishment of that rate, what the parents did is when they were working in the rice fields, they actually picked certain weeds and stuff to get greens. So they were local, easily available, readily available to them at no cost. They got greens, so they were getting some different fiber in them, different nutrients from the grains. And they had bugs that were in around the rice fields and paddies too, that they would use for the protein. So these kids were getting carbs, proteins, and vegetables, so different vitamins and minerals. And that is what was helping them not be malnourished. They weren't just living off of rice, which rice doesn't have all the vitamins, nutrients that are required for a body to be healthy. And so we're taking from this that, so he went and found out what is working. And instead of him teaching these people who don't know him, who aren't his culture, he had a meeting with the parents, and he had the parents who were feeding their kids this and their kids were healthy, explain to all the other people what they were doing, how they were doing it, and why their kids were of a healthy weight. And more of those parents started adopting this. So this is where things go to where we find out what is working. And that's my big thing. So when I'm getting into schools, when I'm thinking about schools, when I think about police services, fire services, EMS, which I have a huge history of working with them all, with other government run services, quite often, as soon as there's a problem, like, so I think of my husband, oh shoot, I don't even know how many divisions they have here. We're the largest police force in Canada, here in our city in Toronto. And I don't know how many divisions that they have. There's a lot, 13, 18 divisions. And this is where I ask my husband sometimes is they'll be having a problem or an issue with something. And so they just go and change the policies for every single station. And I'm like, did anybody go and find out which station that actually wasn't having this problem? And they talk to the officers there to find out what they were doing in order to not have that problem. And they don't. Instead, they take a policy that has to change. So then whatever was working at that station, now they have to do it the way all of the other stations are doing it because they have a new policy. And what was working now doesn't work. And so we look at schools as well. And this goes back to that problem where I said, relying on school. And Tara Sumpner talks about this a lot in our, not a lot, but in our SLP, in the executive functioning course that I do, her being an SLP, it's always in speech and language. And she says, there is not one reading or writing program that works for every child. It really does depend on where their executive functioning struggles are coming from as to which reading program will be. But the thing is most schools, they have to use a certain reading program or writing program or speech program. And it's the whole board. This is what every single teacher has to use across the board to teach these kids. So the thing from this is, yes, this does work for some kids. It doesn't work for all kids. And this is where we keep trying to put like a square peg in a round hole. So with our kids as well, just because they may not be doing well with the way that their teacher is asking them to do things doesn't mean that they can't do it. We don't need to fix them per se. We need to give them tools for their brain to be able to work at those, to be able to help them become stronger in that program. But we're not trying to take these kids and take their personalities away. There are some neurodiverse kids with the most creative brains possible, unbelievable creative brains. And they may not be able to focus on anything because they always have so many different creative ideas. And we do not want to take that away from them. These are the kids that are going to change the world. These kids are going to make so much of a difference in this world. That's where, when we're learning the tools, it's coming at these kids where, okay, so you are going to change the world and you are going to come up with certain ideas that are going to have amazing business ideas or something that's going to change the world. The thing is if you're not able to stay focused on it long enough, you're not going to bring any of these things into fruition. So how can we teach you certain skills to be able to figure out where your attention should be during certain times? I know there is somebody I've been working with recently, an adult, who, as she's working in her business, she's got all of these ideas and things. And I had her do a whole brain dump for me. I'm like, write everything down that you're thinking. And there's different strategies to use based on what she wrote down. And when she wrote down, I'm like, oh, a lot of these are to-dos. So that is a different strategy altogether to teach her how to manage and organize her to-dos, because of her ADHD that she's had her whole life, is trying to organize and plan. And those things are tough for her. It's not a strong skill. She's brilliant in business, brilliant with what she does. And we also need to help her with, she has other business ideas. And we need to teach her other things to figure out which business idea should her focus be on at the moment, and where can she place those other business ideas on like a shelf in a parking lot so she can come back to them, because they're amazing and they deserve something to like some attention eventually. And so it's not with a child that has this crazy, creative, amazing brain. We don't want to squash that. We want to teach them the skills so that can become their superpower and they can change this world. Same with somebody who's very, very like STEM, science, like, sorry, STEM is creative and it's arts and math and science. But let's take somebody who is very math, very, very, very math. It is okay that they're not creative. And do we really need to start really honing and like pushing them, making them feel like, I wanted to say a failure, that like expecting that, you know, that they should be doing these great art projects, or that they should like forcing them to kind of do things that really their brain doesn't work for? Do we need to do that? Yes, there is that side where, yes, if they're never exposed to it, they may never realize that it's for them. And I go on both sides of this with my kids because of homeschooling. I don't have them doing any music. I don't have them doing art. Art for my one child, the perfectionism, any drawing, like it will look like it's a perfect circle to me. It looks like a really, like a better circle than I can draw. And he's not happy with it because it's not a perfect circle. And so he gets very frustrated with anything to do with art when it's not up to his standards, which, as I said earlier, are not great. So I know that I need to work on the executive functioning skills with him first, and then maybe introduce that to him. But I was telling him about how friends of ours that we've introduced the Greeking Out podcast to, it's Greek mythology, phenomenal. The mom actually took Greek mythology as one of her classes in university. And she's like, oh my God, this is like absolutely such an amazing podcast. It's by National Geographic. So that's Greeking Out. She was saying that she has her kids draw while they're doing that. And it's fascinating because of all the executive functioning work I've done with my son. I was telling them that that's what these kids are doing. My kids really enjoy their kids, hang out a lot. And my youngest, with the perfectionism writing, but we've been working on perfectionism, working on cognitive flexibility, working on all of that. He said, that sounds like fun. Honestly, I was like, I had to actually turn my head because I know that my face looks shocked because he's never wanted to draw at all. And this is the thing too, is once we do work on some of these executive functioning things, some of those things that we wanted to get them to do earlier, their executive functioning pieces in their brain weren't ready. And so that's where too, trying to get them to do things that, well, at this age, they should be doing this. In this grade, they should be doing this instrument, or at this grade, they should be doing like the play, like going into theater. My one son, oh my gosh, theater for him would traumatize him. He is so a turtle in a shell, and he using his voice scares him to death. That we're working on things right now with him actually going to, he's old enough to go. He's 13. We have so many coffee shops. I live right off of a main street. There are 3 coffee shops where I know the owners. We know a lot of people that go to the coffee shops, that he could go and do his work there for homeschooling when he needs a break from his brother. His struggle is having that confidence in himself because he's such a turtle to order in a coffee shop. And so we've been working on that to make him go and stand up in a play and act out a different character would be way too much for him right now. And that's okay. And he may decide one day to do theater. Like, it's fascinating as we're working on them at the level that they're at without them feeling like failures. And that's the thing too, when working on executive functioning in Tara's program, when she's teaching us executive functioning, she goes over and over and over again, meet the child where they are at with a step that they can accomplish, so they don't feel like a failure. They don't feel like they're bad. And you work up from there very slowly at their pace. So when we're working on this, we have to sometimes what's it called? When we're working on all of this, we need to make sure that, sorry, I just realized that I have the title wrong on this video here. So I'm just going to quickly change that while you're listening. Side note, I always record with a video so that I can put this on YouTube. It's just a screensaver. Here we go. And now you guys can see it if you're watching the video. All right, with the new title. But when you're looking at this with these neurodiverse kids, like, we don't want to squash them. So if they're very extroverted, we don't want to make them feel that being extroverted is bad. When they're very introverted, we don't want to make that feel bad either. We don't want to make them feel like there's something wrong with them because they hear so much and see so much and take in so much that they need to, step into a room slower. That if they're going to start a new sport or start something, like my one son wants to start jujitsu, we are going to, before he starts, go in and sit and watch an entire class from start to finish so he can see what the sequence is, see what he knows, see how it goes. So it's one less thing for him to stress over, anxiety, and to be aware of, so he can mentally prepare himself for the order that the class goes, for how things go in the class, to kind of see how different kids are in their class and see their different personalities, to take in the amount of information that he takes in at a time. Because if he was to go to a class, not have seen all the kids, not have seen all the things that they do, because of how much he sees and takes in, he would be so overwhelmed taking that in and learning what the instructor is trying to teach him the first class. So teaching them that, hey, your brain goes so fast. This is so cool. The things that you can do with your brain are way more than so many other people can do. The thing is that in order for you to be successful going to this jujitsu class, we're going to watch a class first. So you can take in as much as you can take in while you're sitting there, and you can process it all. So when you go to your first class, your brain doesn't have to take in all that. You've already got that filed in your brain that you can then focus on what the teacher's saying. That is empowering them and using their strengths and letting them know that that is a superpower in their neurodiversity, versus saying to them, you need to go and listen to one first so that you don't have an outburst, so that you don't start yelling at kids when you don't know what's going on, so that you don't start getting pissed off and overwhelmed, right? Like, it's just how we're going to come at them and talking to them. It's really celebrating them and really seeing, like, because I say this all the time, these are the kids that are going to change the world. This is one reason why I was like, I need to work with these kids. Because when we can teach them the executive function and get that manager in their brain to start managing the things in a way that works for their neurodiversities, not that makes them into a neurotypical child. If we teach them how to tap into their superpowers, if we learn as parents how to take stressors off of them, it's how to improve their stress systems, strengthen those stress systems in a way that gives them more bandwidth to handle the stressors that their neurodiversities do take in because of those superpowers, then that allows them to step into their power. So it's not about fixing them. It's about celebrating their neurodiversities and learning them, like taking them and their uniqueness and helping them be unstoppable in the way that their brain works. Help kids that love math be able to work through problems, be able to show their work. And I used to sit there and think, well, why does he need to show his work? Like, what's the big deal? But I realized after my other son is getting into heavy physics, and if you watch Young Sheldon, they've got like this huge board of these like crazy math equations. If they're getting into any of that, they need to be able to show their work. And what I've also learned in them showing their work, it's actually breaking down the planning, the ability to inhibit themselves from moving on to the next thing because they've solved it, and actually stopping and pausing. So working on their inhibition and being able to work through a step plan of how do these steps actually have to go. Those skills are going to translate so much into so many other things in their life. At this point, honestly, does he need to show his work for long division when he can do it all in his head, or, the multiplication? Honestly, if we're solely looking at it from that one dimension, no. But if we're thinking about it in the future and thinking about how can we get this neurodiversity of their absolute love for math to become a superpower for them, then yes, they do. Right? So it's just absolutely amazing, right? I love these kids. And we don't need to fix what isn't broken. What we need to do is support their growth by embracing their neurodiverse strengths. It's creativity, deep passion in a certain topic. If it is deep history, how can we keep going down that deep rabbit hole with them, right? And how can we bring in teaching them executive functioning skills using the subject or topic that they love to dive into, the skills that they need in order to really function, the ones that they need to thrive in a university setting or in a business setting. I say this and it may totally not be true, but I believe one of my kids will be like university math, science, something like deep, constantly studying, constantly learning sciences. And my other one will never go to university and they'll become an entrepreneur and like run the world, create some crazy business and do it. But at this moment, he cannot run a business because he cannot inhibit himself to stop and really work through plans at a time. His perception is unrealistic, where his attention isn't always the greatest, and he won't have the leadership skills that he needs to be in order to lead a team, in order to make sure that he hires the right people into his business that can help with the points that are not his strong points, that can really make his vision come to life. And who knows if that'll happen. Though right now, there are definitely certain things with his executive functioning that aren't going to allow him to really step into his superpower. So it's not fixing them. It's like, okay, where do these kids really shine? And what is stopping them from being able to shine? Let's work on those pieces so they can like shine even more and just change the world. Change the world. They're going to change it because they see the world different. So we're not changing the way they see things, the way they do things. Yeah. I don't know. That just gets me. Totally chokes me up. And this is why, too, I have the support circle. So we can help you figure out in that support circle how to nurture this growth in them while providing the support that they need for the emotional regulation, for the executive functioning, helping manage their stress system, strengthening them, teaching them how to go from that shark that's always on high alert, watching out for everything, or the clownfish that is afraid of change, making transitions, starting new things, or that turtle that's hiding in their shell. And we want to get them to that dolphin where they're comfortable in their own skin, where they're playful with everybody, where they want to go out and adventure and, be out there in that world, being who they are unapologetically themselves, and changing the world, their different viewpoints. It's our job to give them those tools and supports to enhance them, not to fix them. We are definitely going to help your child thrive just as they are. They have big emotions. They wear their emotions on their sleeve. We teach them how. That is their superpower, and how to use it, how to switch out of certain states when they need to, but also to understand when they are switching into certain states, that it could be their intuition telling them to be cautious of something or to trust their gut on things. These kids are amazing. And I'm just so excited to go on this journey with you. If you would like to be in our support circle, then go to the show notes and click on the link that we have beside the support circle and join us. It's cheap. I've made it a price point that should work for people to be able to be there as long as they need support. If it's through all of elementary, middle school, high school, college, so be it. The price is there that you guys can be through us all throughout the journey with your kids, through every stage of their growth, through stages of their learnings. And yeah. Oh my gosh, this so pumps me up. All right. That is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Definitely give me your feedback. I am just speaking to a screen. So it's fascinating when people tell me what they think, because they really don't know, and we all get in our head and we all get imposter syndrome. So let me know with this 5-part series how it was for you. Keep me posted. My email's in the show notes. Book a 30-minute call with me just to chat. Honestly, I love getting to know each and one of you. If you're going to be in the support circle or you're not, just chat. Let me know about your kid. Let me know what you like about this podcast. Let me know what's resonating for you, what's not, where I'm missing the mark. Let me know. And I am going to be doing, I already know I'm going to do another series. I love doing series on this. And so the next series that I'm going to be doing is actually breaking down the different executive functioning pieces. So I'm so excited for that. We're going to start off with perception and then attention, most likely. And then we'll get into verbal, nonverbal working memory, and then inhibition. I think those are the root skills, the base skills that affect all of the other executive functioning skills ahead of it. So I'm so excited to dive into that with you. If you have any questions, let me know, reach out, and I will see you in the next episode.